Hi there and Happy New Year! In this first video of the year, I'm going to cover off some ideas to kickstart your nature photography in 2023, as well as talk about a few trends that you might be interested in. So let's get going with the first one, and that is to think about your foregrounds more. So I see a lot where people photograph a subject and they will pay attention really carefully to the backgrounds to get some beautiful backgrounds that complement their subject, but they don't think about foregrounds so much. And here's a recent photo of mine of a kingfisher, and you can see here that in the lead up to the kingfisher there's some beautiful blur in the grasses that come before the post that the kingfisher sat upon, as well as blur in the background that defocuses all of that stuff that might be a distraction. So I would encourage you to think about your foregrounds even more, and there are so many things that you can do. So you can get down low on the ground and blur out the ground that leads up to your subject. You can shoot through some grasses. If you get something that's somewhere between a third and half of the way between you and your subject, that can create some really nice blur. You can use undulating ground or sand. Whatever's in front of you, pay attention to that foreground a little bit more and just give some more depth to your image. So one of the trends that's really popular right now in photography of all genres is including nature elements in your photos. So that means that we as nature photographers need to really up our game, because viewers are becoming accustomed to seeing more and more nature in photos in general. Whether that's portraiture, which is happening more and more in the outside. I've even seen wedding photos that take place up mountains and in all sorts of wild places. You've got food photographers who are bringing in elements of the outside world like leaves and berries to decorate their scenes. Nature photography in general is becoming more and more important through all genres, so let's up our games. And one of the things that I would encourage you to consider is using muted colours. Now, there has been a trend over recent years, predominantly because of social media, to have highly saturated images. The thing is that if you have bright, saturated images, people notice your photos on platforms like Instagram. But because there are so many photos out there now that fit that style, you want to come up with something a little bit different to help your photos to stand out. And what I would encourage you to do is think about muted colours. So if you go out on a day like today, when there's lots of cloud cover and the colours are looking a little duller than normal, you can create some really nice effects that are a little bit different to the other photos that you might see on such platforms. So I've got loads of other ideas for you to try, which we won't have time to cover all of them in this video, but I've created something that will help you. When I put the equivalent video out to this time last year, I became aware that there were a lot of you who followed along and almost used the ideas that I gave you like a tick sheet to tick off and say that you've created all of those different types of photos. So this year I've set up a sheet that you can go onto my website and download absolutely free, and it gives you 40 different ideas for nature photography which you can try, and if you want to you can just use them as inspiration, or you can tick them off like a bingo card. It's up to you. But go ahead, go to my website walksonthewildside.co.uk/2023-ideas. There's also a link in the description. Download that, take some inspiration from it, and try and capture as many different styles of photo this year as you can. So the next idea is to think about how you display your images. And I'm going to ask you to think about using a triptych. Now, a triptych is a collection of 3 images that work together. So it could be 3 of the same subject, like this one of puffins. Notice how I framed the action shot with 2 portraits on either side of it, and they're all facing the same way. So this helps with the flow of the image. But it could just as easily have been 2 puffins at the edges that are both faced inwards and the centre puffin faced onwards. So most of the people who post collections of images online don't think about how the images work together, and you might swipe through them and none of the images are related to each other in any way. So you could use your triptych to tell a story, like in this one of grey seals. So the grey seals haul up on beaches all around the UK, as you see in this centre photo, with a grey seal bull and a grey seal cow who are interacting with each other under a sunrise. And they will mate, and you can see on the right there's a grey seal cow in the sand dunes away from the other seals that are on the beach waiting to give birth. And if we zoom into that, you can see the bulge in her belly of that baby pup waiting to come out. And then after looking after the pups for a while, the mothers, the cows, they go back to sea and leave the pups to fatten up. And you can see here on the left a pup by itself that's just waiting to fatten up and learn to swim so that it can go out to sea for itself. So I would suggest, even if you don't display your images as a triptych, thinking about how they come together to form a story could really help with your photos online. Whichever platform you display them on, if you link them together in a way that tells a story, it becomes more engaging for your viewers. And another thing you can do with a triptych is split a single image into 3 panels. And this is a really popular way right now to display images if you want to print them and hang them, or maybe even sell them. You can divide your image into 3, either horizontally or vertically, and print off those separate parts, frame them, and hang them up together so that they're a triptych on your wall. So just sticking with landscapes for a while, I want to encourage you all to go out there and take some landscape photos. Now, I know that many of the viewers of this channel concentrate on wildlife, and many of you also do some macro photography, but far fewer of you engage with landscape photography. But I think it's really important to try landscape photography, even if it's not the main thing that you do, because thinking like a landscape photographer will really help your wildlife photography. So environmental portraits that show off your subject in the context of their environment are a really great way to go. And I've talked about those on this channel quite a few times. Most recently we talked about them in regards to the winners of Wildlife Photographer of the Year, many of which those photos had landscape elements to them. So by practicing your landscape photography, it will put you in a position that when you're out taking photos of wildlife, you'll do so with a landscape photographer's mindset and capture those beautiful environmental portraits. So the next idea I want you to think about is investing in your learning. Now, watching YouTube videos is a great start, and there's loads of videos out there that you can learn something from. But there's also books, and this year in particular, I want you to think about going to some exhibitions. So exhibitions have taken a bit of a hit over the last couple of years with the pandemic, but there are a lot of them booked in for this year. And I would encourage you to get out there and go and see them. Not only will you be supporting your fellow photographers, but you can learn something from them by absorbing the photography, thinking about how they've achieved those results, and going out and trying to do similar things. I'll also take this opportunity as a little bit of a plug for myself. If you head over to my website right now, there are some workshops that are available for this year, and you can look at those by going to walksonthewildside.co.uk/tuition. So the next idea is also something that's a bit of a trend across lots of genres, and that is to show photos that are from an unusual perspective. Now, when I talk about unusual perspective, what I mean is showing your viewers something that they don't normally see with their own eyes. Not necessarily something that they can't see, but views that they wouldn't normally look at. So, for example, when people are looking at birds, normally they're looking up at them. But if you take a view where you're looking down at the birds, for example, if you're looking down over the edge of some cliffs or off a hill or something like that, then you can create views of the birds that people don't normally see. So there's also abstract images. So these are definitely things that people can't see with their own eyes because these effects are created in camera, but it should be something that's still visually appealing to them to want to see. So abstract images can help hold people's attention whilst they try to make sense of what they're looking at. Here's an example of something that intrigued me. So this is a little bit of dead ivy that was climbing up the tree before it died, and it's formed a shape of a tree on the tree. So these close-up shapes are things that people wouldn't necessarily look at as they're walking through a woodland. Also, monotone. So I do talk about black and white images a lot because I personally love black and white, but black and white is a classic photography view of the world that people wouldn't normally see because we see in colour. Now, hopefully these ideas are giving you a little food for thought for things that you can do in 2023. But if you want more of them, do head over to my website and check out those 40 ideas that you can download absolutely for free. That's walksonthewildSide.co.uk/2023-ideas. There's a link in the description. And for even more ideas for different types of photography, you might want to check out my video, Different is Better Than Better. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.